on who you're working for or whatever, if they want you to set it up differently, you know, whatnot. But in the next class, I'll teach you guys how to put those parentheticals in there. So when you're putting direct examination, you know, if you forget to do it, it's no big deal. You just press Alt-R, brings up your block files, you go down to direct, put direct in, no big deal. But there's a steno command for it. So you write it on your machine and it automatically puts it in there. And you define it. So it automatically puts it in there. You don't have to worry about putting it in there. It's pretty neat. Okay? So anyway, this is the reverse. So you can do anything. You can go to the last question that they asked. You know, say they asked a question, you know, whatever, and say you're doing real time. And they have an objection. And the objection goes on for about a page or 2 pages of objection before the judge rules on the objection. And they say, you know what, I don't even remember what the last question was. Court reporter, can you read that back? Yeah, no problem. So you're here, you're right here. You know, you're at the end, the judge just ruled or whatever, and it's like, you know, hey Dave, I need you to read that back. No problem. Reverse scan, Q, goes to the last question. See how it took me to the last question? See that? Pretty neat. You can go back to the next, you know, anything, a byline, you know, and that's, the byline is where the attorney is getting ready to question the witness. So it's by Mrs. Jones, and then it has the question and kind of goes down, okay? Let me see if I can.
Is that little r? It's the reverse.
Yeah. Try it. You can do it, if you're in here, you can do it from there too. So everything that I'm doing, you can do that. So try it.
What did you say byline is again? It's,
I'm getting ready to show you. Well, it's not really going to show everything, but see how it says by Mr. Chidas? By Mr. Chidas, question. That's how your setup is, okay? And then right above it is going to be cross-examination. See that? Cross-examination, by who? You always have to have who it's by, okay? Because then whoever's reading the document has no idea who you're doing it. By Mr. Chidas, question, okay? That's colloquy, right here, where they're saying, you know, where he's not asking question answer anymore, he's talking to the judge, that's colloquy, okay?
How much colloquy is there in a deposition?
Probably not as much.
Since that's probably like what we'll be doing
Yeah,
first.
it's gonna be a lot of question answer. Yours is gonna be a lot of question answer, but if they object, you know, say they're in the middle and he goes, he asks a question. Well, in a deposition, you can only do so much as an attorney. You only have so much leverage in there or whatever, and they can object. They can object to the form of the question, or they can object to something else. A lot of times they object to the form of the question. But the witness still gets to answer it because then the judge rules on it, and he's like, well, I objected to it when we took the deposition. This was the objection, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, I mean, you could be going, you know, what's your name? David Zerati. Where do you live? 4214 Main Street. What city were you born in? Victoria, Texas. Where do you work? I work at Bexar County Court. And why object to that? Now it's colloquy because somebody else has come in and said something. So now you have to hit that symbol for that person and type that in, and then the other guy's going to say, okay, you know, are you done? Yeah, I'm done. Now you hit the symbol for that guy, back to question answer, then it sets it up again.
And when is a good time to start worrying about learning all the speaker identification stuff like that?
It's going to be later. Well, it's going to be in the next class.
Okay,
You're going to learn all of the speaker identifications, everything.
okay. And And it'll, I mean, is that hard to incorporate, or is it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's like anything else. Once you
If
get
I
it,
can do it, you can do it.
trust me.
That's right, do that class.
When did you do that?
And look, I hadn't had the first part, and I could
Yeah, so
do
you're
it.
back.
Yeah.
But he's a good teacher.
She started the other way around. She started hard, then came back to the easy class, so.
But do you
I like
ever
that.
write that
I
on
like
a
that.
steno?
Huh?
Do we ever write that on a machine? Or
What's
is
that?
You know, the speaker identification.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's how you're going to know who's talking. So if they say, you know what, I want that read back. I want that whole objection read back. Or if the jury comes back and says, you know what, I want the whole testimony of that witness read back. It happens, you know. So, I mean, you have to be prepared to go in there and read this whole thing back, you know, which is not real hard because you have each speaker identification for each attorney. So when you go through, you have, you know, like on my first speaker identification, I have attorney 1. Well, you don't define it as Mr. Jones because it's not going to be Mr. Jones every time. It's just going to be attorney 1, attorney 2, attorney 3, attorney 4, witness, the court.
And then you would change it after the fact. And
Yeah, and then you just go in there like a fill in the blank, go in there, highlight it, fill your blank in. It's going to ask you if you want to do it throughout the whole document. Yes, I do, because that was the person that did it all. Bada bing.
so when you
No problem.
wrap up for the day, do you always do that?
No,
No. When would you fill in the blanks?
I don't fill in the blank until they order it.
I was only if they needed the transcript
Yeah.
produced. And so how do you remember who was the attorney?
Because my judge is real good about it. Like at the beginning of the case, he says, okay, this is 2015 PA 00999 in the interest of David Girardi. I want everybody to introduce themselves. Who's here for the state?
So you got that on the record?
Yeah.
And you can just, okay.
So it's like, you know, so I just start going through the document. I don't even have to look at, you know, but we have access to all kinds of stuff. You have access to the file, to the computer, and it tells you everything. It tells you who represents the state, who represented the kids, who represents mom, who represented dad Chidas, who represented dad Girardi, who represented dad Gonzalez. You know, you may have 3 fathers on one case, you know, and 3 different, yeah. Tell you what, guys, we've had, I think the record is 8.
Wow.
8, so, yeah.
Schools.
I think she was trying to find herself. I'm not sure. Huh?
That busy little camper.
She found it 8 times.
Yeah, she was in college trying to find herself, but, you know,
Oh,
exploring some stuff. No, but, you know, so you have that situation, you know, where you're gonna have multi-attorneys. You know, and if you ever come sit in my court, you'll see. I mean, the least amount of attorneys that's in there is usually 4. You know, so you have 1 for the state, 1 for the kids, and at least one for mom, and at least 1 for dad. So there's 4 attorneys in there. And if there's multiple dads, and you have some interveners that are coming in, and maybe a school district is there and they brought their attorney, we could have 6, 8 attorneys in there. The caseworkers, therapists, you know, so you can have all kinds of stuff. So you have a lot of speakers, but it's actually pretty neat. I mean, you know, we'll get to that more in the next class. We're kind of getting a little far-fetched, but that's when it kind of starts getting fun because you kind of start messing with your machine, and you know, it's pretty cool. But anyway, so that's how you fill in a field. So how do you do it? Fill in a field? What's that? E. Okay? All right. So we did the reverse scan. How do you do the reverse scan?
RT.
R. And then whatever you want to do. So if you want to do a reverse scan, that's just R. So then it opens up this box. T is going to take you to the next scan. Trouble spot.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So you have to be careful with that.
Oh,
Okay? R just tells you that you want to go in reverse. Okay. So an up scan is what it's called. So it'll take you to the next parenthetical, which is the colloquy, raw conflict, a speaker, trouble spots, untranslate, bless you, an index command. I don't know what a flag stroke is. You know, but if you mark digits, you know, it'll take you back. So it's actually pretty cool. Any questions about that? No? Okay. Now they're going to talk about globally. All right?
Let's see how to quickly select steno strokes to perform global replacements. In the Edit section of User Settings, you'll see the option Global After Scan. If there's a check in that box, here's what it does. When I scan to the next untranslate, Eclipse will automatically highlight one stroke of steno for globaling. If I need additional strokes for globaling, I could simply press Ctrl G as in global. Well, what if I scan to an untranslate and the steno that I need to add does not come after, but before the untranslate? Here's where the arrows come in handy. You can target steno that comes before your starting point or after it, although you can use the mouse to point and click.
You understand what it's doing there? It's pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. And I'm going to have you mess with it in just a second. And I'm going to back it up and kind of, I probably should have stopped it and kind of said some, mentioned it a little bit.
Scan. If there's a
But you want the global after scan, okay? Check. And the global magic, because the global magic is it's gonna tell you, it's gonna bring up the box for you and give you options of what you've already done with it. Okay, so if you've already scanned a word, then it's gonna go to that and it's gonna know. So if you're one letter off, then it's gonna say, well, last time you had it here, it was gun. But this time you had, instead of the G, you left off one letter from the G, UN, and it said, well, last time it was pretty close to this and you had gun. Do you still want gun? You understand what I'm saying? Okay.
check in that box, here's what it does. When I scan to the next untranslate, Eclipse will automatically highlight one stroke of steno for globaling.
Y'all know what Control G does, right?
Global or go to?
Global.
No, not.
Control G. So Control G is going to just global. So it's just going to keep marking a word. Control G, Control G. You just leave your finger on Control and just keep pushing G. Do that right now. Anywhere where you are, just do it. Just push Control G. See how it's marking it? Yeah?
Yes.
Everybody got it? Okay. And that's what it does. So when it goes to an untranslate, it's just going to go to the first one. We'll say it was a two-stroke word, which this is. It's Bernard. Okay? Well, it just goes to the first one. Well, you're not going to global it as Bernard if it only has the one stroke. And that's what it's telling you. Does that make sense? Understand? No? Okay. When you go to an untranslate, which you just did right there. So it's going to global just that first stroke. Well, you don't want to define Burr as Bernard because the stroke is Bernard. So it's only going to global the first one. But if you want to add to it, and that's what it was saying right here, you can use those little arrows and do that right now. Just global the first one. So just push Control G on the first word. Now use that little arrow. Right there. Do Control G. Now use that little arrow, yeah.
This one here?
No. This one. See how it goes back? Now it's adding strokes back, or you can go forward. Just kind of redo it. Well, you know what, yeah, that might be what it is. Okay, you're using, the arrows goes up and down, these go side to side, so,
Okay.
so do the base. Get out of that. Control G. Now do the arrow right.
Do I have to hold down?
No. See how it's marking? More stuff. You had already started going the other way, so that's why it probably didn't go. Yeah, left. You got it? You did the arrow? Yeah, but just get out of that. Do Control G. Now, use these little arrows from side to side. Go up and down. You got it? Control G. Okay, now do the arrow. It may be because there's a comma there. Yeah, you had the comma, so let me just
Do you want me to
go to you. See how it's adding?
Yes.
You
So I
can
can do
it
that,
the
or I
other
should
way.
just do Control G.
Yeah. And then usually, and Control G is kind of the easier thing to do, okay? So if you want to just keep adding to it,
So if it gets hung up though on like a comma I put in or something, that's what
Yeah.
it's gonna be a hang up.
yeah. Okay, I got it? So that's why, and you're just gonna do Control G again, or you're gonna use the arrow. Okay? So you want Bernard, you want the whole word Bernard, but right now it's just Burr. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand?
Yes,
Does that make sense now?
it does.
If something doesn't make sense, guys, don't hesitate to say it doesn't make sense. The whole point is to learn this class, okay? So the dumbest question asked is the one not asked, okay? So if you have a question, ask. Does that make sense too?
So Confucius-like.
Exactly, Murphy. So, but see how it globaled it right here? Now it's giving you options of what you want to do. Okay? Well, did you mean better? Bear? Beer? About her? You know, it's giving you options of what it thinks that you tried to do. So the more that you use the software, the more that it gets familiar with what you're doing. Okay? So then these examples change. So the same example here of Burr may not be the same example that somebody else uses. Okay? Because maybe he or she writes it a little bit differently. So your examples may be different. So it gets to know, the artificial intelligence gets to know how you write and how when you're changing stuff, it remembers how you're changing stuff. Okay? Does that make sense?
If I need additional strokes for globaling, I could simply press Control G, as in global. Well, what if I scan to and translate, and the steno that I need to add does not come out?
And this is pretty neat here because say you have MC defined, okay? And you have it defined as MC, put it together with the next word. And there's a way to do that in your dictionary, okay? Because you never know if you're gonna have McDonald's, McFurs, McPherson, whatever. But you always wanted to put, so now all you have to define is furs, okay? Well, it's already defined as Mick. But say you want it, you know what, I want this one in my dictionary because I take a lot of the depositions of Mr. McFurs, okay? But You know, maybe FERS is gonna be with something else and you don't want it to attach on to something else. You always want it, when it comes up Mac FERS, and that's your stroke for it, that it's always gonna come up M, small c, large FERS, if that's how he spells it or whatever. And maybe the person's name is MacPherson. But now you're gonna do Mac, Fierce, Son, 3 strokes? No, I wouldn't. You know, maybe to cut it down, I'd do Mac first. And maybe that's what they're doing for MacPherson. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Stroke it out. I don't care what you do. I'm just telling you, you know, you can do it any way you want, you know?
Do you stroke Mac or Mick in your own?
I do Mick, MC. I don't do Mac. Just because, you know, they can be talking about a Mac computer, a Mac Daddy. I'm just giving you different. Well, McDonald's to me is going to be MC. MC because, you know, to me it doesn't conflict with anything else. The only thing that I use, well, really it's MK. It's not MC. It's MK in mine. But like when I'm talking about, we have something that we use every day, and it's called managing conservatorship that we use every day in our court. Well, my managing conservatorship is M star K. So it doesn't come up Mick anymore. It comes up managing conservatorship because I use the asterisk. So that asterisk is going to probably become one of your best friends, because when you start figuring out briefs and stuff like that, and everybody's a little bit differently. You don't, you know, everybody hears things differently. So you may like to stroke out managing conservatorship. Whatever. When you get carpal tunnel in about 3 years from stroking everything out, let me know how that works out for you. But, you know, so, you know, if you like stroking stuff out, guys, I'm telling you, anybody who tells you that you have to use briefs, wrong. I got out of school, and I was one who stroked everything out. I didn't have hardly any briefs. The only briefs I used were the briefs that was the big briefs that they taught us. Beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, members of the jury, that was it. Everything else I pretty much stroked out.
And today, what percentage
Today,
of those briefs of your
a lot. Because we hear the same stuff every day. Every day we hear the same stuff. And you get to where you want to work smarter, not harder. And you'll hear me say that a lot, about working smarter, not harder. You don't want to do any more than you have to, okay? So stuff that you're going to hear every day, and say you don't hear it every day, but you're taking the deposition of Frederico Krzyzewski. You think you're going to stroke that out every time? Frederico's 3, Krzyzewski's 3. That's 6 strokes for 2 words. You just did. I wouldn't. You can do what you want. I don't, you know, it doesn't matter to me. However you hear it, whatever. But, I mean, I do, you know, maybe Fred Sheff, S-H-E-F. You know, or if they're just saying Frederico, then I just do Fred. Or maybe they call him Fred. So you know, you don't want to define it as one time. You know, a lot of times when you're using a brief, a lot of times what I want to do is use it twice. Just because it symbolizes that it's a brief. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's not like, well, Fred, I don't remember them saying Fred. Oh, I used it for Frederico. But when you see Fred, then it kind of triggers to me, maybe not to you, whatever, but it does to me that it was a brief, okay? And you can use, you know, and say every time they said Frederico Krzyzewski, they said Krzyzewski. But if they just said, so you don't want to define it, I mean, and you can define Fred as Frederico Krzyzewski, if they used it every time. But if they said, well, what, you know, did Frederico go? Now you're going to have to think of something totally different, because now the Fred is Frederico Krzyzewski.
Would it be crazy to do like Fred as Frederico.
That would be crazy. You know, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna bring up Federico Krzyzewski, Fred.
Oh, if you already, okay.
So then you're gonna have to go through and define it again, that Fred is Federico.
Sorry. Okay.
So I just come up with something different, you know, but you can do what you want, but I'm telling you, and even now, guys, even now, and I tell the students now, and I wish I would have done it when I was in school, and I mean, it is what it is, but I mean, so people tell you that you can't get through school if you don't brief, send them to me, okay? But, you know, when you're taking a test, if you guys are taking tests now, do you? Are you still in theory? Some of y'all still in theory? When you start taking tests, they're gonna give you the proper names that are in that test. So they're gonna say, well, this test is the deposition of a guy, and his name was Federico Krzyzewski. God almighty, you're not gonna stroke that out as many times. I don't care if they say it once. So when they tell you, okay, these are your proper names, and you start writing them down, you're already thinking in your head, okay, what's a brief I can use for that? Unless it's John Smith, 2 strokes, pretty easy to stroke out, no problem. Just
So
stroke
it's-
out John Smith.
So it's not bad if I've been doing that in testing, but like if it's Mulberry Avenue, and I know I've got it there on the paper, then I'll just do Mole Ave, and then that's not bad.
That's great. But what I would do is when they give you Mulberry Avenue, put out to the side, Mole Ave. This way you go through, it's like, because you don't have the dictation coming back and helping you or whatever. It's like Mole Ave.
Well, and that'll come up on my thing as you will or some weird phrase that's
Yeah,
in the
mole,
dictionary, so-
mole maybe multi and Ave is avenue. So it may come up as Mole Avenue or Mole after, multiple after. You know, so you have to be careful with what you use, because as long as they didn't use multiple after in that thing together, then just define it. And you use it in a job dictionary. Okay, don't put it in your main dictionary. You put it in a job dictionary. And how do you do that? Haven't we discussed that?
Control G.
Control G, then you go to select the job dictionary.
And a job dictionary, which is what? What's a shortcut? Control J. Because if not, it automatically puts it in the main. So if it gives you the job dictionary,
I go in there and I select job dictionary.
and you can, there's no big deal. I'm just telling you the
But
shortcut.
this is the shortcut.
The shortcut is Control J.
Wait, so we would still do Control G, and then.
Yeah, to global it. And then once it's global, then it brings up this little box right here. And then you go here, and that's where it says Control J, which is a job dictionary. So you want to come in here, and if it has Control J and it's like, well, I don't remember the command for putting it in my main because I want to put it in my main, you can drop the box down and it'll tell you, you know, main dictionary, or Control M puts it in your main dictionary.
How do you get this, that drop-down list to move out of the way if it's covering up stuff you want to click on? Because like mine, it's taking up the entire,
I think you can like put your cursor, your mouse over it and then drag it. You have to click on it and then drag it. Oh, you had a mouse.
You want to do what?
I want this out of the way so I can tell it what dictionary to do too.
Yeah.
And then I would move from there and do Control J.
Mhm. Or you can drop down that box. Big Control J. You can actually do a lot of neat stuff in there. We'll kind of go over it. Because you can fix stuff, you can delete stuff, you can review stuff, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we kind of got a little far-fetched from there too, so. But, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying right here? On the FERS, the MIC and the FERS, going back and, you know, adding more or adding less or whatever, okay? So using the arrows.
After, but before the untranslate. Here's where the arrows come in handy. You can target steno that comes before your starting point or after it, although you can use the mouse to point and click. Keyboard commands are generally faster. Your keyboard's up-down arrows will add or subtract steno in front of your starting point, while control down or Control Up will add or subtract steno after your starting point.
You see what it's saying there? Got it? Everyone? Carmen? Okay.
Of course, you do not have to use automatic global after scan. I prefer to use hyperkeys that make it possible to select multiple steno strokes with one button. So here, instead of having to press Control G 5 times, I can just use